Good morning, everybody. This is Mohammed with the Mohammed Minute. Now, everybody comes to the conclusion in their life that you have to live a life worth dying for. How do you live a life worth dying for? Now, you have to realize the things that you can stand up for. You know, the man that stands for nothing will fall for anything. So you have to establish facts in your life that you are willing to die for. Are you willing to die for your country, right? If you are, you're a sucker because countries, the concept of nationalism has plagued the world since its inception. Beforehand we had empires where everybody was free in their microstates, but they had to ultimately answer to a larger empire, meaning that their financial systems, their trading systems were connected to this empire, but everybody had self autonomy. The thing with countries, if you want to die for a country these days, what it implies is that you want to die for some man made laws. The danger of this is people tend to blindly follow the rules of an authoritative figure, right? Blindly follow. This leads to corruption. This leads to a lot of negative things that have plagued a lot of people and situations in the 21st century. Look at World War One. The balkanization of the Ottoman Empire, which led to made up countries, which led to those countries fighting each other instead of the true threat, which caused the division of those countries. This is very dangerous, and you're seeing it play out in the Middle East right now with northern Iraq versus southern Iraq versus the Kurds versus Turkey versus all of these different factions that are created because of nationalism. If we come to realize that only 150 years ago all of these countries were living in harmony with each other, right? Because there were no countries, there were no borders, there were no security threats, there were no man-made laws to implement non-realistic ideals for people. Once you create a non-realistic ideal, people look at each other with contempt because they think that, oh, this person is from here, so he's doing a little bit better, so I don't like people from there because they don't look at us this way. When it's all a mental game. You see, the man who stands for nothing will fall for anything. If you can stand for some universal truths, then you will see how you are being played, right? So forget nationalism. You shouldn't die for your country. What's next? Would you die for your loved ones? You should, because in order to love something, you have to be willing to make sacrifices. If you just love an ideal of a country, that means you're very selfless. You don't love the people around you. You love an outside concept that governs your everyday life, right? So that outside concept happens to be nationalism. So forget that. Are you willing to die for your religion? Now, the thing with religion is, at least with Islam, it's based on intention. This is something more of a realistic concept to die for. You have to be willing to make sacrifices for something you love, right? So if you love God, if you love your family, these things, then you'll be willing to make more educated sacrifices. Why? Because at the end of the day, those things have a more universal purpose, right, than let's say your country stops at its borders. Religion stops nowhere. It has no limits, right? Your family stops. It has no limits, you know. So the love for those two things should trump your love for nationalism, meaning that you have to be willing to love people the same way we love ideals. You have to be willing to love yourself through God, which will allow you to see the world in a better light. If you just live for your country, the love for the world will stop at its borders. This is what the people want. They want you to have a limit, you know. You can, there's an old saying in the hood, right? Like, you can capitalize, you can double up your money, you can run your block, but if you don't have ownership, then what are you really doing, right? So, do you have ownership over the country you love? No, you don't. Other people make laws. What about ownership over the family you love? To an extent, you can influence your family in ways that you can't influence your country, right? God can influence you in ways that a politician cannot. So these two factors need to play a pivotal role in your understanding of the world. Why do some people do horrible things? It's usually in the name of nationalism. People can bomb a whole country in the name of preserving peace in their own country, right? But if you were to look at the world with a change of view, with a change of perspective, then you can come to accept a lot more things. You can come to realize how you are being played. You can realize how your forefathers were being played. You can come to realize that you have more power than even your country. Why? Because you make up your country. Without the people, there is no country, right? So you have to put yourself in the position of vulnerability for love. Now, if you love your country, would you put yourself in a place where you might go to jail, you might have to pay off time for some debts to society, right? No, because you will have to break laws. You'd have to, do something wrong for you to end up in that place. Now, if you're very nationalistic, you might end up saying that guy, he deserves to go to jail. Why? Because he broke the laws of the country. Why? Who made the laws of the country? A man made the laws of the country. So who's to say those laws are even correct, right? Just because something is outlawed doesn't mean it's not right, right? So look at Nazi Germany. When they were gassing the Jewish population, people were cool with it. Why? Because it's nationalism. It's for the betterment of the country. Now, did some people go against their country? Yes, they did. Why did they go against their country? Because they had love for either their family or for God. They had fear of God and fear of their family, right? They didn't want to show their face in a circle where they would be labeled as a tyrant. In the name of nationalism, people can turn into tyrants. So what you have to realize is that you have to be willing to give up the structure of the matrix to accept the structure of the universe, which is through loving your family and through obedience of God. These two things will help guide you in a way that no other man-made laws can really guide you, because at the end of every single man-made laws is the intention of making somebody a criminal. Every new law makes new criminals. So just let that marinate. Think about what I just said. This has been a Mohammed Minute. Peace and love. Early morning grinding. Do what you gotta do. And just remember, today is your day. You can do whatever you want, if you wanted to. And that's a big if.